Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast. As the owners of Hired Hand website software, we've been developing websites and creating internet marketing strategies for livestock breeders for the past 10 years.
The majority of our customers are involved in the breeding of registered animals, such as Texas Longhorns, Highland cattle, horses, and white-tailed deer, where the pedigrees are very important. The From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast examines many of the differences in raising pedigreed livestock for maximum profit. Join us and learn what we're covering today.
All right. So Jamie, as we're filming these podcasts kind of early in the year, we are well aware that we're about to get very busy with sales season. And it seems like with sales season also comes futurity season. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about who we're going to be having join us today to talk about their futurities and their rules surrounding them?
Yes. So today, Johnny Hicks is going to be joining us, and he is going to be talking about so he is involved in or runs two futurities. He does the bluegrass futurity that's associated with the bluegrass sale. It used to be the Southeast Winchester futurity. Is that right? And so this year it's changed over to the bluegrass futurity. And then he also does the futurity that's associated with the Fred Bryant sale that I believe is in October of this year. So anyway, so he's going to come in and he's going to explain some of the rules for his futurity, just so that everyone is on the same page.
And the name of Johnny's business that he runs these through is Heartland Promotions, right?
Yep, that's right.
All right. Should we bring him in?
Let's do it. All right. Well, welcome, Johnny. Thanks for joining us. I know you wanted to talk with people a little bit about the rules that are associated with futurities that you're involved in. So we'll let you take the floor.
All right. Thanks, Jamie. I wanted to do a podcast. I'm excited this year. The futurity season's about ready to take off. I think it starts this weekend down in Bryant, Texas, with the original Winchester futurity. And then it seems like every weekend there's going to be one somewhere for a while. A lot of new people get in the industry. There's a lot of veteran people in the industry that are just getting into the futurities. I've been getting a lot of questions of what is the futurity? You know, how do I participate? What wins? What do I got to do to win? What are the judges looking for? I know Justin Rombeck, Bear Davidson, and myself have all been receiving those type of questions. So I thought I'd put together something to answer some of those questions on my Heartland Promotions website. So I've been working with the TLBAA on some defined breed standards. We didn't change anything, but we just kind of went in and wrote paragraphs defining what the breed standard looked like that was already written. So I implemented a lot of that into this just so people can know kind of what the judges are looking for. To start, let me click on my rules here. If you go to the Heartland Promotions site for the Bluegrass Futurity or the Fred Bryant Futurity, right now I have a section listed for futurity rules and guidelines. And it kind of talks about the purpose of the futurity. And talking with Bear and Justin, we all agreed that the futurities were designed for breeders to get together and have a good time. The main purpose of the futurity is a fun event for breeders to come and be competitive with one another and enjoy each other's company while showing off and promoting their programs. And so I don't want this to turn into like, these are like rules and regulations and kind of take the fun away from it. But I do like to have something out there so people know what the expectations are. But the purpose of the futurity is for a fun place for breeders to come showcase their programs, have a good time, and be competitive while marketing great things for local areas. When I got in this industry, the only two futurities I could participate in were in Texas. And that was hard on a younger breeder that had a job traveling and wanting to do something with these cattle, but not having the time to do it. And now if you look at the futurity money earners list, I think there's 18 futurities all the way across the country where anybody can participate. So the goal of these rules and guidelines is to kind of bring some consistency throughout all these futurities, so you kind of know what to expect when you bring your cattle. And I'll just touch on a few things. I have a kind of explanation of what the judges are doing. We've agreed that 5 judges seems to be the best system. A lot of people have asked when I've called for sponsors, how many judges am I going to have? And the reason you have 5 judges is you throw the high and the low out, and you use the middle 3 for your score. And that way, if somebody doesn't like a certain style cattle, or there's a personal grudge, anything, it kind of eliminates that. And you usually never throw the same judge out every time. So it keeps the scoring more consistent across the board.
With the judges, Johnny, don't you also try to usually get every like 5 from different backgrounds? So maybe there's one that has a show background, another that is maybe breeding for horn or twist, maybe another who's been a ranch manager in a past life, or, you know, just kind of bring all those different backgrounds and attributes to the table so that it's a wide variety of opinions.
That's exactly right, Molly. And when you get into the breed guidelines, that's one thing that comes up is how come I can place first at this futurity and 5th at the next one? And it goes to that statement that even if an animal meets the breed standard perfectly, there's still a huge variety in these cattle. I might like twisty horn. Somebody might like high horn. Somebody might like black and white better than red and white. Somebody might like red roans. So if you get a variety like Molly spoke of, you don't have a judge that just likes all 5 judges all liking red roans. And so that's why the 5 judges is nice, because if you've got a judge that thinks all horn must be V'd back, that one judge won't be able to affect the score negatively on all the animals that have a different shape of horn. Even though the animal meets the standard, it doesn't allow for a certain style of animal to always dominate, I guess is the best way to put it. And the futurity isn't like a halter show. The judges aren't placing the animals. The scores of the animals place them. And that's a hard thing to comprehend. It's more like a sale ring than a show ring. And that's a hard concept I think a lot of people get, but and Baird has a good way of explaining it. Each animal walks in on its own merit, and the judges score that animal on its own merit. And with having 5 judges at the end of the day, the combined scores is what places that animal. They're not trying to remember what they've seen 7 animals ago, 8 animals ago to compare them. Its own merit, just like you would if you were at a sale. When an animal walks in the sale ring, you pay according to that animal. And that's how the futurity is supposed to be. Judges are supposed to have that mindset.
And there's even some instances I know where judges will score out to like a 4th, an 1/8 of a point, a 1/2 of a point. And so it can be very competitive in across the board in those classes, right?
So on my rules, what I've noticed is as people are figuring out what the judges like, we're getting a lot of ties, because there's a lot of animals that are extremely similar. I mean, there's not a lot of difference between them. And right now we're scoring to the quarter and halves and even 1/8 sometimes. But what we're finding is we're getting a lot of ties. So I've implemented in these rules that we're going to do 10s. It's easy for the judges to write 72.1, 72.2, more than a fraction, or try to figure out the fraction. And what we're hoping is that the judges won't get hung up on similar numbers. So if you think something, before you had either 1/2 or a quarter. If it wasn't a 1/2, it had to be a quarter. Where now, if it's not a 1/2, it can be a 0.6, a 0.4, a 0.3, and give them a little variety in their scoring to help with the ties. Because we want this to be fun and fair and easy to understand. Futurities are for the everyday guy that doesn't want to shampoo and halter break their animal. They have businesses to run. They enjoy these cattle. They want something they can and have it be profitable and fun. So we want to make this simple and easy to compete in. Simple to understand. It's never easy to compete because the like I said, the animals are getting so consistent now that these futurities are tough. I usually say in the top 5 or 6, the scoring could go either way any given day, just because the competition is that stiff these days. And I think these rules will help with that. It goes into detail of, the fact that we want the natural appearance of the animal. You can groom them, you can wash them, you can trim them, but try to keep it to a minimum because we want to see what the animal actually is. The judges want to see, what the genetics of that animal are. That'll help them. I've had people call and say, we had animals that won futurities for years. We bought them and, we can't get them bred. And so in the breed standard of a Texas Longhorn, one of their special traits is fertility. So this is one of the points I really want people to pay attention to when you start filling your forms out. Please read these rules because it's very detailed what you need on your health papers to be able to compete or enter the facility. One of the things that a lot of vets don't do, I'd like the name of the animals on the health papers. It makes it easier for the people in the office to match them. When the people unload the cattle and they hand the paperwork off to the people in the office people can file that without walking out into the pens and looking for identifying numbers to make sure they match. So if you could have your vet put the name of your animal on the health paper. We would also, anything 30 months or older, which in the Kentucky one, we don't have to worry about that, but other futurities have the older animals. They must have a calf at side, must have the preg status on the health papers if they don't have a calf at side, or a registered calf on file. And that's all laid out in here. And something else we're offering, if your animal is 18 months or older and you put the preg status on the papers, the judges will receive that information. Because I've had new breeders tell me that, I'd like to breed my heifers, but I can't because I want to show them. Well, that's a myth. You can breed your heifers and show them in that 15, 18, 20-month range just fine. Missy and I have been doing it for 15 years, and never had an issue and still place well in the futurities. So if your animal is 18 months or more and you want the judges to know that animal is bred so it gets credit for doing its job, we're offering that opportunity. You don't have to preg check them. You don't have to breed them. It's just, it's an option out there. If you are one of the people that breed those animals and want that animal to get credit for that in the ring, that opportunity is now offered.
So are you trying to get the judges to correlate, maybe giving that additional 1/10 of a point for that information, or how are you kind of relating that back to your judging system?
Yes, exactly. Because if you've got a 22-month-old heifer that's 2 months away from calving, and she's just as nice and looks just as good as one that is not bred, that animal should get credit for that. It should score better. I mean, these animals are supposed to be early for maturing and early fertility according to the standard, and the animals that are doing their job and maintaining their condition, it should be a superior animal. There's a lot of nutrients and stuff that go into that calf that if that animal can travel and maintain condition and have a calf, that should be a superior animal to the one that all it has to do is maintain its own weight. So that's a good feature in these cows, one that can handle the stress, handle the traveling, handle being pregnant, and still look just as good as the ones that aren't. That's a good trait that you'd want to pass on to future generations of these breeders. And that's why this is called a futurity. We're supposed to be guiding the future of this breed. I mean, we're supposed to be rewarding the people that are breeding the future of this industry. So I think these rules will help with that. And it also protects people. If you buy an animal and it's showed for 2.5 years and it's never had on the health papers that it's bred, well, guess what? I mean, if you buy the animal, you knew that. Where now you have that option to see when this animal's been showing this period of time, has it ever had a calf? Is it bred at the time? It's on the health papers. It kind of protects the participants as well.
Love what you're hearing? Be sure to check out our Pickup Truck Confessions. It's a video series where we hop in the truck or a rental car and interview a variety of breeders about what drives their passion for their livestock, how they got started in the breed of their choice, marketing tips, and more. And now, back to the podcast.
It also has on these rules, they're not actually rules, but I have a breakdown of kind of what the judges are looking for. And this is more of an educational thing for judges to use and for people looking to enter the futurity. You can scan through this and it's broke down. There's kind of just a brief description. And then if you scroll down further, it breaks it down into the sections: legs, feet, head, ears, horns, shoulders, back, hips. I mean, I think there's 20 some categories that you can go outside and look at your animal and kind of read this and see how they line up. That's, I think, important, even for veteran breeders. I've been doing it a while, but I hear these comments that these futurities the judges are just brand inspectors. And I want to break that myth, because it's not. The people that are winning have figured out what the judges like to see, what the market of this industry likes, and that's what they bring to the shows. And that's what they bring to the futurities. And they've studied and they've got it down. And I want to give that opportunity to, whether you're a veteran breeder that is struggling to get in the top of the futurities, or a new breeder that wants to compete, you can get on here and get educated of kind of what you need to be looking for. Because that's the cool thing about a futurity. It don't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the business. It doesn't matter who you are, how many cows you own. All that matters is what that animal standing in the ring looks like. And that's why it's cool, because anybody in any part of this industry can be competitive. And I can speak to that from experience. Missy and I got in 16 years ago, single income family. Throughout the first few years, we have 5 kids, didn't have a lot of extra money, not a lot of extra free time. And we were able to be competitive in this. At first, we'd have 9 calves a year, and we're still competitive. I know the Wolves are another good example of a family that have a small herd that do well. So it's the futurities are great for our industry, because anybody can compete and everybody can have a good time.
So Johnny, for our listeners that are more visual learners, have you thought about putting up some of those animals that you think uphold those breed standards, or who have maybe won, a large percentage or placed high in a large percentage of the futurities?
That is in the works. Like I said, I'm working with Justin Rombeck. Also is going to implement these set of rules to all his events. He's already agreed to it. Bear's looking through them. These things are not set in stone. We just had to start somewhere, and I wanted to start with the bluegrass. As Bear and Justin get more involved, I think that's our goal. Our goal is to really make this more of an educational tool and make sure everybody's on the same playing field. Because you'll have somebody come up and say, they don't agree with something, and you say, yeah, that's probably not right. We probably shouldn't have them in the futurity. But you can't say nothing because it's not in writing anywhere. Just because you just assume something is unethical or something should be common knowledge, if it's not in writing, you can't enforce it or even educate people that why we don't want that stuff. So that's we're just trying to get some stuff in writing. But like I said, we do not want to turn this into a strict, it's not fun anymore type thing. This is just more for educational and to make sure everybody's on the same page. So when you show up at a futurity, you know it's fair and it's fair for everybody.
So Johnny, I know with some of the other affiliates or groups or organizations that are in the industry, when you're talking about like the halter and non-halter shows, they make their judges take a class or go through a certification process that I would assume also reviews kind of their breed standards and everything. Is that something that you plan to do with your judges in the future, or will you continue to just try to get a variety of backgrounds on the panels?
So even if you did that, you need a variety of backgrounds just because of the variety of the style of cattle in the longhorn industry. And a lot of the variety, it still meets the breed standard, but it's region driven. You know, people forget that these cattle are from all different regions, and you know, some pastures you need 160 acres per head, where you can't have, you know, a 1,500-pound cow that requires a lot of feed and expect it to raise a calf and have to travel that much between mouthfuls. So there's a lot of varieties in this breed because of regional reasons. So you're still going to need that variety of judges. The hard part is getting judges. With all the futurities we have now, to get 5 per futurity, it's a chore. It's a chore to get good qualified judges. I think in the future, it would be nice to have some kind of a judges seminar or something like that, and have the judges take the class or whatever before they become a judge. We're not there yet, but I think as we get more consistency through the industry with these futurities, that's a good goal, because it would help people feel more confident in entering their animal, knowing that the judges are kind of all on the same page. But again, we don't want this to be cookie cutter, because we don't want to lose the variety of these cattle. Like, they can still be within the standard and meet the traits and still have unique individual characteristics. I mean, just horn shape is one of the biggest things, the color patterns, height. I mean, some people like longer legged cattle than other. That's really not against the breed standard. There's just a lot of variety that goes into your region and the style of cattle you like. We don't want to take that away. But I mean, there's things like tail set, hook to pin angles that have to do with calving ease, you know, udder attachment. That stuff's all consistent, that judges could all have the same training. But yes, we'd like eventually to be able to have something out there that not only for the judges to take so they can be certified, but for people entering to look at so they know what their animal should look like. And eventually I would like to have pictures by each bullet point on here for desirable and undesirable, so you can see the difference. Because sometimes if you just put a desirable picture, and even myself when I was a new breeder, if I seen the desirable picture, I would take it out and look at my animal and say, it's not much different, because I couldn't see it. But if somebody showed me a picture of undesirable and desirable, I could see what my animal more closely resembled, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So if you look like 3-5 years in the future, what are you hoping that these rules that you're implementing, or these guidelines, what are you hoping that futurities look like in the future because of them?
So one thing, I'd hope it'd be easier to get judges, because we'd have a stockpiled list of people that were interested enough to take the certification, that showed that they were interested in maybe being a judge. I would like to see more consistency across the futurities. I guess the whole purpose of this, again, is to make sure the futurities stay fun and fair for everybody so that they can be a great marketing tool. My goal is to see the futurities be what drive the market. So you can win enough money at these futurities, you don't have to sell your heifer to be profitable. That's the goal. And when anytime there's money involved, you better make sure you have rules, or people are going to complain that they think something wasn't fair. They think this, they think that, where if it's in writing, you don't think about it. Either it's in the rules or it's not. And that, I think that's why it's important we start putting some stuff in writing, because if we're going to raise the prize money and make these things more lucrative, we need to make sure that the expectations are clear. And my goal would be to see that at the end of the year, you could win $30,000-$40,000 by showing your heifer across the U.S. And with that, when that happens, the value of everybody's cattle will go up because they all have a goal that they're trying to shoot for. I think that's my main goal with these futurities.
So if folks have questions or they want to read through the guidelines that you've set, they can visit your Heartland Promotions website, which we can link that in our show notes. Is there anything else that you want them to know about, or any other resources that you want to know for our listeners that want to learn more about this topic?
Not at this time. Like I said, this is just the infancy stages of all this, but it had to get started. And so I just figured this was a good time to implement it. I really want to push people, before you send your entries in, please read the guidelines for the health papers and kind of the rules, so you got a handle on it, so that there's no misunderstandings. Like I said, there's not a lot of rules. Most of it's just information, but there is definite rules when it comes to the health papers.
When's the deadline for your entries, Johnny, for the bluegrass?
The deadline's March 18th. So they've already started rolling in. I'm sure they'll all come about the last week like normal, but the other thing I'd like to point out is a lot of people, I've been getting these calls for the last 3 or 4 years. Why is there no consistency across the board with the futurities? Why is there not a set of rules? Why is there not a judging clinic? A bunch of whys. And the only thing I can say is futurities, every one of these are privately ran. And when you have every futurity that is run by a separate individual and privately ran, that's why there's no consistency between them. And I'm hoping Bears Money Earners is a great tool to fix that issue. So if people want to be a part of that Money Earners, we could get some consistency, at least with that group. Even though they're privately run futurities, they all have a common goal in mind that they're working towards. So as a new breeder or a veteran breeder that's trying to figure this out, these were started for fun, and they were run by private individuals. So there's no real governing, nothing to govern what futurity does what. So we're hoping I'm hoping that setting these rules and standards, that people will like them. They'll call me about them. We can tweak them. We can make them fit our industry, and we can keep this being a fun event that's fair for everybody, that can also be lucrative for everybody involved, and drive the price of our cattle up because of the opportunity.
Well, thanks, Johnny. We learned a lot today, so thank you for joining us.
Yep, thanks for putting this on, and I look forward to seeing everybody in Kentucky.
See you there.